There you go. Right. So welcome again in this week number 2. This week we are going to discuss about properties checking. I mentioned this one last meeting where we could actually create some kind of data validation in our properties. For example, we want to forbid the property to be less than 0. So things like account balance or the overall account balance, it's the minimum value should be 0, right? We don't want people to get account balance less than 0, which is not possible. So we can do that using properties checking. We can tweak the properties to avoid that. And further, we are going to discuss about exceptions and error handling. Now, last week we have learned how we can create our own class. We can specify fields, properties, and methods in our own class. And we also learned how we can use the class, how we can create objects based on that class in our applications. Now, as I mentioned before, in today's discussion, we will discuss how we can do things in our set property, and we will also learn about exception and error handling in here. Okay. Now, last week in our exercise for overall count, we automated the creation of properties using quick actions and refactoring features. So we will have default and something looks like this. Okay, this is the data member. These are the properties. As you can
Excuse
see.
me, sir.
Yes. Oh, I haven't shared my screen.
Yes, sir.
I'm so sorry. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. Good. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Now, as you can see here, the top part is the data member, and below is the corresponding properties. Those with get and set meanings it is both readable and writable. So we can read and write this property name. Again, just to be consistent, make sure that all data members begins with small case, and all properties and all methods actually are using camel case, begin with uppercase. Okay, now the pin is only writable but not readable. The overcase and overpoints properties are only readable but not writable. All right. Now, in here, sometimes, as I mentioned before, we need to validate or check the value before we set the value and store it in the data member. For example, overcast and overpoints should be positive or at least 0. All right. If, for example, for some reason, the overcast and overpoints are set to be negative, then we need to force it to 0, or we can simply raise an error. Okay, there's something wrong. You should fix it instead of putting a default value. We will talk about the approach, whether we should change it to a default value or we should raise an error later on. Now, account name cannot be empty. For example, when we create a new object, a new account object, we can check whether account name is given. If it's not given, then we can display an error, and so on and so forth. Pin must be 6 characters, and so on. That's another example. Now, For example, let's focus in here. Let's say we want the OFO cache and OFO point must be positive or at least 0. Otherwise, we set OFO cache and OFO points to 0. Okay, we consider 0 as the default value, and therefore, if the value becomes negative, we should force it to be 0. Okay. Now, in week 1b, OFO cache and OFO points have no set components in the properties because they are only read-only. So we need to add set components inside the properties. Okay. However, if we put set components inside the properties, it is by default make the properties becomes changeable or writable outside the class. All right. How to avoid that? Well, we can avoid that by simply adding private. As I mentioned in many times, private means that method or that property or that data member or whatever labeled with private means only accessible within the class. Okay, it is not accessible outside the class. So we can do that with our set property for this OFO cache and OFO points. So this is the implementations. As you can see here, we highlight the private set property. We put set with private. Instead of like get, we don't have private in front. For property, the default setting is public for property. So if we want it to be private, we need to explicitly write private in front of the property set. So in here, inside the private set, instead of saying just get as default, like this, instead of saying set name or set OFO cache equal to value, we do checking first. If value greater than or equal to 0, then we set OFO cache data member equals to value. Else, if it's negative, then we force it to 0. And then we do the same for the OFO points. Okay, this is the OFO points property. Okay, public in OFO points. The properties is public, but the set in specific is private. It means we don't want external entities or external coding to access this one. In other words, this property is actually read-only. However, when we set it, we want to check to make sure that the OFO points is bigger or at least equal to 0. Now, change all the data members into properties. It is recommended to always use properties instead of accessing directly to the data members. This is again because with the properties, we can make sure that, we can apply data validation just like what we did in here. Therefore, we need to have a property for each data member that we have. All right. Now, we can just simply change it. Before we have, I will show you what we have last time and then change it. Okay, let me just copy what we have last time. Copy. Okay. So our OFO counts in here. Last time we make this one as read only by doing this. Okay, now we need to change, as I discussed earlier. We create private set. If value greater than equal to 0, then we set ovo cache equals to value. Else ovo cache equals to 0. We do the same in here. Sorry, private set. If value greater than 0 ovo points value, else ovo points equals to 0. Okay, now that we have changed or enabled set property for ovo points and ovo cache, we should not allow direct access to ovo cache and ovo points anymore. Okay, if we remember last time in here, we directly access the ovo cache data member. You can see here, it started with small case. And if you hover on it, it shows it is data member instead of properties. Okay, now that we have the ovo cache set property, we should change it to the property. If you hover, you can see the tool in here. This implies that this ovo cache is a property instead of a data member. We should do the same for the by. In here, okay, in here, I think that's it. Okay, so it is very important that we have a consistent naming convention that helps us to identify whether we are accessing directly to the data member or we use the correct properties. Okay, why is that matter? Because if we don't access the property, then we cannot apply these data validations. Does that make sense, everyone? For this one. Okay, so this is just explanation about set properties where if we call or if we assign a new value, basically the new value is passed to the value in the set properties in here. So the current ovo cache plus nominal top up is added to the value in here. Okay, that's a similar with the ovo point set property. Make sense? Again, let me know if what I said suddenly make no sense, you confused, just let me know. I'm happy to stop and explain in further details. Next. Jimmy, you mentioned before that if we have a set, it means we can set it outside the class. But since we have private, that is no longer the case. We can check we can make sure that we cannot do that by simply, let's say, go to the form. Let's just do something in here. Let's say my account, this is outside the class, right? This is on class form, not class OFO accounts. Okay, so everything private in this OFO account can only be accessed from this class OFO accounts. We cannot access from here. So I'm trying to access the dot OFO cache. Okay. If you hover to the OFO cache, we can see here that the OFO cache set is actually private. Okay. Let's say I want to try. I want to force it. I want to set. It will create an error. Look in here. We can read the property OFO cache cannot be used in this context because the set accessor is inaccessible, because the set is private. All right, so that's good. That's what we want. That is what we discussed in this slide. Now, how it is working now? Let's see. This one says that currently, if we buy something, even though we don't have any cash balance, we can still buy. Although the item price is not zero, it's not negative. Last time, the cash balance can be negative, right? Before, our cash balance can be negative. Now, it is no longer negative, but we can still buy, right? We can still buy. For example, let me just run this one. Okay, I put on Jimmy, phone number 1234, pin AAA, whatever, one, register. I can still buy even though I don't have any cash. So let's say I want to buy $10,000 rupiah. Okay, 10,000 has been charged. My current balance is now zero. What we did in the set property is to prevent the balance to become negative. It's not preventing us to buy anything. Yes, it is not negative, but I can still buy. Well, we should not do this. Okay, how to prevent that? We need to, as we discussed last time, we need to tweak the buy method. We need to tweak the buy method. Right? Now, what we can do here, we, instead of void, we change the buy method and put a return value Boolean, where this method should return true if the transaction is successful. In a sense, if we have money, enough money to buy the item, and it should return false if the transaction failed. In other words, we don't have enough money to buy the item. Okay, and to do so, we can go to the OFO accounts, change it in the buy here, change it to pool. Okay, and in here, we simply check if OFO cache. Remember to always use the property. Goes to item price. Then do this. Lastly, return true. Else, return false. Okay. Transaction success. Failed. Okay. Now what we do? Now what do we do? Okay. If yes.
Sir,
Catherine.
how about if they have OVO point but they don't have OVO cash?
That's a very good question. But for current topics, let's just ignore that. If you really want to consider the OVO points, what do you think we should do?
If OVO cash plus OVO points.
Correct. So instead of just considering the OVO cash, we can consider the OVO points. Oops, not data member, but I want this here. Okay. And what, Kathleen?
OVO cash plus OVO points.
Yeah.
Minus equals to item price.
Yeah. This is already wrote this one, but that's not the end of the story. What? We need to change this one too, right?
Yeah.
Because put it this way. Let's say our current cash is 100,000 and our points is 50,000. So this is 100, this is 150. I want to buy item 120. Let's say we assume we will always use all the points first. It means we will make the OVO points reduced by the item price as much as the OVO points, and then we reduce the remaining from the cash. Let me put on text so it's easier to understand. I'm not.
So why don't we just wrote two of it? I mean, like OVO cash minus equal item price. Then below it, we just write OVO point minus equals to item price.
Sorry, I'm not an auditory kind of person, so you need to.
Oh,
I need to write.
Okay.
So sorry.
So just like
Is it?
before, So
Mhm.
I think below OVO cash. Why don't we just write OVO point minus equals to item price?
No, because
No?
then it means you will pay twice.
All right, we can use conditions, sir.
Yes, what kind of condition?
If OVO cash bigger. Wait.
What's the rule? Which one we want to use first? Points or cash?
OVO points.
Points first. Okay. Let's
Okay,
say
OVO point.
this case. Let's say this case. So rule is use points first. Okay, that's the rule. Now case. Let's say our OVO points, cash is 10,000, 100,000. All right, and points is 50,000. Price is 120,000. Okay, what we want, the points is 50,000 minus
50,000.
50,000 becomes 0. Cash is 100,000 minus
70,000.
70,000 becomes 30,000. Okay, that's what we want, right? Now let's change it into variables. Points. The first variable is actually the current
Points.
points. Okay, so that means points equal points minus the maximum of this.
points.
Sorry, the maximum between points and the price, right? So something like this. Points or price. You get what I want?
Mm-hmm.
Hang on, let me see if we have max. Max.
Is it nummax? Oh wait,
Math.max.
math
Aha, there you go.
I mean.
Yeah. All right. Anyone knows how max works?
To the comparison between
10,
the
20.
first variable and yeah.
Max 10, 20. What's the result? Agis?
20.
20. Hey. Max 50, 30. Agis, you're too quiet, mate. I know you can do it.
Yes, sir.
Max 50, 30. What is it? What's the answer?
It's 30.
Max 50, 30. What's the result? What's bigger, 30 or 50?
50.
50. So it's 50. So max is getting the bigger out of the options. The option is those inside the brackets. So which one is bigger, points or price?
Price.
Right?
A price.
Price is bigger, then it will be reduced by the price. If, sorry, then we cannot do max, right?
Yeah, because it will become like, yeah.
Negative. Then we do min. So min is the opposite of max. Which one is the minimum out of two numbers or the numbers inside the brackets? So min 10, 20 is 10. Min 50, 30 is
30.
30. Okay. Having said that, in here, in our case, points minus min. Points price is, the points is 50,000, the price is 120. So what's the result? Current points is 50,000 and min between points and price is 50,000, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so the points is this one. We can just put it in here. Points over points equal to over points minus math dot min. What's that? Over points, comma, item price. Make sense? Okay. Make sense? Good.
Yes.
Now, that's easier. The next one is challenging. How do we get this 70,000 from? Cash is cash minus, where is this coming from? 70,000. This is actually the sorry?
No, sir. Just
yeah. You can answer. I'm happier if you can answer it.
Item price.
Hang on, let me just write it. Item price
minus minimum point price.
Points, comma, price. Correct. So what is this? I prefer to put it, this is correct, okay? But I prefer to make it more readable by saying remainder Okay, this is to remember that has not been paid. Is the item price minus minimum points, comma price. We already paid this one using our points. Okay, what's left and still need to be paid using cash is the item price minus the minimum points price, because this is what already been paid using price. So then becomes the, and this is item price is 120,000 minus 50,000 becomes 70,000. Remainder becomes 100,000 minus 70,000 becomes 30,000. That makes sense right now, right? Now, once we get the idea, we can simply apply it in our code. You can just say integer remainder equals to what's that? Item price minus this. And then this is OFO cash minus, instead of item price, we change it to remainder. All right, so all this headache is because of Kathleen. So you should blame her if you have a headache, not me. But any question for now?
Sorry, guys.
It's all right. It's a good practice.
You are unforgiven.
All right, all good. All right, where was I? Where was I? All right, now we have changed this one. We applied this one and save it, build it, and then you will have error when you start. It's okay to build, but when you start, ooh, no error. That's weird. But anyway, we still have problem. Okay. 1, 2, 3, pin 1, 1, whatever. We can still buy things. Even though we have that. Jimmy, does it mean that it's not working? No, not really. The modified by method is working. The problem is we have not applied it. Okay, so this by is actually returning a value. It's returning indication whether this is successful or not. Look at here, the bool, but we don't have any statement here to consider that. Okay, that goes in slide number 14.
Sir,
Yes.
I have an error.
Let me do this one first, and then we check.
Okay.
Okay. Now,
Okay, sir.
let's say in here we check the status. Bool status. Okay, equals to account by, and then we check here if status equals to true. Then do this, else do something else, right? For this, you don't have to have equal to true. If you're lazy, as I am, I can just say this, because status is actually a Boolean. So if this is true, then I can just say it's equal to status equal to true. That's the same. Heck, if you are even more lazy, you can just do this. without this. That's fine, but that is too hard to read for me. Okay, I usually just do this, but if you don't want that, you can just do this. True. All right, actually, this is what we want if the status is true, meaning the transaction successful. If not, we don't display charge through the account. We simply said, notification. Let's add this one underneath. So just say this one, your what do we want to say here? If you don't have enough balance, your OVO cash plus points in our case is too low to buy. Please top up first. All right. So in here, we consider the transaction status. If the buy return true, then we confirm the buy and put it in the list box. If the transaction is false, then we display this somewhat called error message. We try, and I have this Jimmy register, and then if I buy price 10,000, I will have this error. If I top up first, my balance is now 20,000. I can now buy and have this displayed. All right, Kenneth, you still have problem? Have you solved your problem? Or...
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No, not yet. Because on the OVO accounts, the GS. GS, can you, oh yeah, that public pool buy. You have no error, right? But I have on buy, it's red.
Okay.
Line.
All right, let me stop sharing. Can you show me yours, please?
Oh, sorry. Give me a second. My bad. I forgot to put return.
Yeah, try
Sorry,
to
my
hover
bad.
on the, it's all right. Try to hover on the error, and usually it will show you a hint on what went wrong. All good now? All right.
Yes, sir. Okay.
I will wait and until all of you are ready at this stage. Okay, so we are on page 15. Okay, and you should check, just like I did before, if we have not enough balance, it should display this error message. Everyone already at this stage?
Yes, sir.
Agis? Catherine?
I'm not doing it. I mean, like, I managed to do it after the class.
Oh, okay. You sure?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I mean, because my screen is too small to do two things.
Okay.
At the same time.
All right. That's all right. Now, let's proceed then. You good, Agis?
Yes, sir. I'm good.
Okay. Now, That's one. Next, name. The name, let's say in here, we want the name to have value, any value. It should not be empty. Currently, even if we don't put anything, we can have the account created, right? So we want to check to make sure it's not empty. If it's empty, we should display an error or a warning message to the user, because there is no default for the account name in this case. For this reason, we need to add value checking to the property, and therefore the property must have a set component. We already have it, right? How to do this? Because there's no default value, we cannot do the practice that we do on the cache and the points. For this, we need to have exception. In other words, we need to raise an error. What is exception? Exception is in Indonesia is perkecualian. Okay. In other words, it's error. It's mistakes. Okay. For example, we can divide a number with any number except with 0. Okay. We cannot divide a number with 0 because it will give us an infinite number. It's not a number actually. Infinite is not a number. You can access lists in any index except from negative index, and so on. So these are exceptions. Now, we can throw our own exception. We can generate exception. We can say, hey, there's a problem, so you should fix it. Okay? Now, how can we do that? Exception can be generated by throwing what is called as common language runtime. We can use the statement throw, and then we can state what is the error. Okay, and then we can catch the thrown error using try and catch. All right. Now, our application, we need to create our own exception, and therefore we need to explicitly throw the statement. And therefore, it allows our user to try and catch the exceptions. If we don't catch it properly, it will generate C# exceptions, unhandled exception. It is called unhandled exception, which is bad. Okay, this is bad because it looks like it's not professional. It will crash our application. It will crash our application. Therefore, we should not allow this to occur. If there's a problem, we should allow the user to fix it instead of crashing the application. Okay, for example, let's say, for example, on form load, I do this integer a comma b, and I said integer c equals to, let's just put it simple. Integer a equals to 100 divided by 0. Okay, it immediately gives us this. I think they are getting smarter. Can I do comma 100 b 0 integer result equal to a divided by b. Aha, there you go. For this, C# cannot detect the problem, although we can see a is 100, b is 0. It means result equal a divided by b will generate error. If we don't handle this one, once I get this, okay, it will crash. This is crashing. Okay. Now, if we don't want our system to crash, we can do try catch. Try this if exception AX. This we can still do. Let's show. Failed to divide number with 0, for example. Continue. Now, what does it mean? Try, as it implies, will try to execute this one. Everything between these curly brackets. Okay? If successful, then it will go here. If there is something wrong here, it will go to the catch exceptions. If there's something wrong, means there's an exception occurred. If there's an exception occurs, it will be catched in these blocks, and we should do this. Okay? Now, after this is executed, it will still continue in here because it's not crashing. It's not crashing. It's simply there's an exception, and we already handle it. It crashes when there's an exception and we don't handle it. And this is how we handle. Okay? This is a general exception, means any exception. This is just a variable. This can be anything. Okay? We can say problem, whatever. Okay? Whatever. If you know what the problem is, then we can state in here. Problem dot text. That should be a text. Try to string. Okay. Restart. We will have this one. Failed to divide number with 0, and this is the problem text. If we click OK, we will still continue. After this is displayed, we execute the next statement, which is showing a pop-up continue. We click OK, we get into our application. So it's not crashing at all. Understand? Okay, that is way more professional than showing and crashing our application due to exception. All right, I just explained this one using the try and catch. This is more specific. What I showed you before is this one, general exception. Okay, now if we want, as you can see, the exception is this one, divide by 0 exception, which is somewhat intimidating because it looks scary, isn't it? We could make a friendlier exception by saying this. Okay, should stop it first. If we know the possible exception is divide by 0, then we can say divide by 0 exception, and then we can just remove this. Okay, and this is, let's say, what are other exceptions? For example, general exception, unknown exception, for example. Div by 0 problem. Here, unknown problem, and therefore we need to display what the problem is. For example, like this. Okay, what does it mean? If there is a divide by zero exception, it will go here. If there is another problem, there is another exception that is not the divide by zero exception, it will go to this general exceptions. By doing this specifically, if we start, we will have a friendlier and less intimidating warning. Okay. Now, let's see. Any question for now? So this is better than before, than putting everything under unknown exception. Some other exception include argument exceptions. So there is a mandatory argument that you need to be passed to a method, but the argument passed is invalid. Argument no exception, and so on and so on. There are many other exceptions that you can read the complete list in here. All right. Now, in our own class, we can throw our own exception, our own custom exceptions based on our requirement. Now, in our previous example, we might want to throw an exception if the user put no names, okay? Because name is mandatory, user should supply name, okay? Now, there are two ways to handle exception, and basically we have discussed that previously. So first is to raise exception. Second is to provide default value. All right. So for example, in our case before, what we did with our cache and points, we use default value. If for some reason the value becomes invalid, we change it into a default value. Right? For points, if the points become negative, we change it to 0. 0 is the default value. If the cache becomes negative, we change it to 0 too. That is the default value approach. With exception, okay, for example, with our name, if there is no name given, we throw an exception. We don't give default value, we throw exception. Which one is better? Depends on the case. Okay, depends on the case. For example, for pin, which one is better? If the user provide no pin, should we raise exception or should we give a default pin? What do you think?
Exception.
Exception, correct. If we give default value, then people will say, okay, so what's my pin? Right? Instead, we should raise exception. Hey, you have not put any pin, so you should provide one before you can create an account. So this is another case. In a bank deposit class, we have amount of deposit, which is the minimum of deposit, and the minimum amount of deposit is 2 million rupiah. Okay, the minimum amount of deposit is 2 million rupiah. And there's an option in here, whether if the user submit less than 2 million, should we display error or warning, or should we just charge 2 million rupiah if the user provide less than 2 million rupiah? What do you think? For case number 1.
It should be exception too, right?
Yes, this should be exception too. Question is why? Why? We have 3 cases here, so that's enough for each of you. So this one, I want Catherine to answer. Why?
Because we don't want like if I want to like withdraw 1 million and then the system will automatically withdraw 2 million. I mean, it's not it's not good, right? Like we are making something that the user doesn't know it.
Yes. So as Catherine mentioned, I don't think it's fair if the user only want to deposit 1 million rupiah, and then because it is less than our regulation, we suddenly withdraw and deposit 2 million rupiahs for that person. Okay, I think that person will have a lot of complaints because it's like robbing or stealing the user money, right, without them noticing. Okay, that's why. Kenneth, number 2. In a student info class, we have student name data member. To store the name of the student, the data member cannot be empty. Should we raise a error, or should we put a default value?
Error exception.
Why?
Yeah, because to warn the student to to warn the user so the student name cannot be empty.
Yes. Why?
To warn the user.
Oh, okay. To warn the user. Yes.
Yeah.
So because basically, what's the default value for student name? There's no default student name, right? So we really need to ask the user, hey, you need to provide here instead of us generating a random default value, right? Now, Agis, in the social media apps, we have profile picture file size. The file size must not be greater than 2 megabytes. If the user upload more than 2 megabytes, should the application resize the pictures so the file size will not exceed 2 megabytes, or should the system raise an error? What do you think?
I don't know, sir, but in my experience, they will give me an error too. So I must upload picture that lower than 2 megabytes.
Okay. Yes. In many cases, the application will notify us, hey, your file is too big. You need to upload file that is less than 2 megabytes. Okay. And do you know why, Agis? Any guess why they do that?
Maybe if they resize the picture, it will make the picture blurry or something.
Correct. Maybe if they automatically change it, they might end up doing something that is unwanted by the user. So it's better to ask the user to somewhat alter the pictures, because reducing the file size can be done in various ways. Either they crop or reduce the what's it called, the details, not details. What's that? The quality, the picture's quality, or anything, something else. All right. So that's why. Good, 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 good. Now in here, we want to learn how we can throw exceptions. We have learned before that when there is an exception, we need to handle it properly. Otherwise, it will give us an unhandled exceptions. Okay. Now, in our applications, we want to have a try and catch. Wait. For example, we can try to add a try and catch exception thrown by C#. Okay, this is an exercise to catch an exception. Catch an exception. Okay. For example, we don't want to. Let me just remove this one so it's not disturbing us. All right. Okay, good. I want to top up. Let's say I put in 50,000, right? There you go, unhandled. Why? Because we're trying to convert a text characters into numbers. They cannot do that because RB is not numbers. Okay, this is unhandled. As you can see here, format exception. Okay, this is bad because our system is basically crashed. So the good way is to handle the exception. What should we do? Try this. Okay, anyone still remember what's the error type? Format exception. Bad problem or format problem, for example, format X. We set message box show incorrect format. Okay, amount should be number. Okay, for example, we can do this. So instead of getting an error, we get a notification what the problem is so the user can fix it. For example, in here I put 50,000, I put top up. It says incorrect format. Amount should be numbers. Oh, okay. So you want this? Yes, I want this. Make sense? Again, that is simply how we can catch an exceptions, as we have discussed before. All right. We don't want this one because if the program crash, you will get complaint and your customer will disappointed. Okay, I've shown you this and I've shown you this. Okay, if we want to say limit overflow exception, what does it mean? Can anyone guess what overflow exception? Based on that one, the top up nominal is too big. Anyone? Based on the error, overflow exception is, remember, integer have limits. Integer limits is 2 billion, I believe. So if we put more than 2 billion, it will give us an error. Okay, that's what this error all about. Okay, so we can catch that one too if we want. See here, if we put, I don't know to spell this one in English. I don't even know how to spell this one in Indonesia. It's too much zero. It's too small. Maybe we can just say, okay, put a smaller number. All right. Now, let's now focus on creating our own exception. Okay, we can use the throw. All right, we can use throw exception to avoid account having a blank name. We can have this one in the name property. All right, so if someone attempt to set name to an empty string, we should, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right, sorry, bad internet connection. So how to throw our own exception is simple. We simply use statement throw, and then we.
Sir.
Yep.
Your share.
Oh, okay. My screen share is reset it.
Share.
Yes. Hang on. There. All right, we simply need to throw the statement throw, and then what's the argument is new argument exception, follow with the exception description. Let's say we want to display account name cannot be empty. All right, now that we have exception in here, we need to catch it properly again, just to make sure that our program did not crash, but instead it provides a warning or what to do to fix the problem. So it should go like this. Okay, now let's do the class first. In here, what we want to change is the name. Okay, we want to change this one. Instead of doing just this, if value not equals to empty, oops, then we set the name here. There you go. Else, we throw new argument exception account name cannot be empty. All right, that's it. Okay, this is our checking. Next, we simply need to check when we try to create account. All right, we need to create a try catch here. Try to do this. And if there's a problem, hang on, this is a general exception. Else, oh sorry, catch exception X. We simply set message box dot show X dot message. We can display that. All right, now we try. Let's say just this one. If you say account name cannot be empty, which is what we want. There you go. If successful, it will add the account and display in the list box. Any questions so far?
Can I see the class?
Sure. This is in the property name.
If we just put throw here and then new argument exception, then we directly close the bracket and write the account name cannot be empty in the form1.cs. Is it okay, sir?
You want to throw an empty?
I mean, no.
I understand what.
Yeah, it is directly yours. Your
Yeah.
code is directly, yeah, like that. We just put there. Is it okay?
Name cannot be empty in here. This one?
Yeah, like that.
The problem in here is that there are so many things we try in here. Okay? Maybe the problem is not with the name. We don't know, right? If you want to be very specific with the error like this, okay, then
Yes.
you need to be very specific in the catch. You know
Oh,
what I mean? Because
okay, I get it.
this is a general exception. We don't know whether the problem is because of the name. Maybe because of other things.
Okay.
Okay. So if you want to be general, you need to display the exception message, because it pretty much depends on the exception. So the user will know, oh, okay, the problem is this part.
Okay, sir.
All right, go.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, now moving forward to page 46. For example, phone number. We want the phone number should not be empty and must be numeric. Then we can use try parse to check. Or, so we can go here, phone number. Okay, we do the same. Let's change this one into things like this. Whoops, what did I do? I don't want to change the whole thing. I just want to change this one into a function like this. And then we check. Hang on. This. Okay. We can use the integer try parse. Okay. So we can check is number using integer dot try parse the value and out in result. Whoops, value. What does it means? What this statement means? Meanings, we're trying to convert the value, the given value by the user, to integer. Okay, and the result, if successful, then this one will be true. If it's not successful, this one will be false. What is this? This is just some random variable that we use as a that will hold the converted number. Okay, the converted number. So, for example, okay, let's say string txt number equals to 1, 2, 3. And then we do integer in number equals to in dot try parse txt number comma out int number. Sorry, this is bad. This is bad. Full result. Or is success. Okay. If I do this, meanings I'm trying to convert this variable, which is 1, 2, 3. If successful, then the int number will be 1, 2, 3. Okay, int number will become 1, 2, 3. Make sense? The integer version, the converted number, will be in here, and this one will be what? Success. Right? Make sense? What this is means, what this is, and what this is. Another example is success equals to integer dot try parse ABC out in number. What will this give us? In number. I don't think there's still 1, 2, 3. No, I don't think it's still 1, 2, 3. I believe it will be
ABC.
Convert whether a return value, this one, in the maybe nothing, because there's nothing there. Okay. Now, but the is success will be false. Will be false, because we cannot convert this one into number. This one will be empty, I believe, because this one cannot be converted to this. Nothing. It will be nothing. Okay, that's the try parse, how to use try parse. But in our case, phone number, we don't really want to use the integer version. We simply want to check, we simply want to use the try parse to check whether the given value is a number. Okay, if successful, if is number, then we can simply change the phone number into, oops, sorry, this one to this, else we throw an error. Too lazy. Where's my error?
Sir, how if we put phone number equals to result?
Sir, cannot. Remind me after this. Cannot
Okay.
be empty, and must be numeric. Okay, so if we fail to parse, then we should throw an error like this. Now, Kathleen, question. If, for example, we put here integer result, and in here we do this, okay, and in here phone number equal to result, what will happen? Error. Why error? Because phone number is a string and result is an integer. You cannot assign integer to a string. You could do result dot toString, but why bother? The value is already in string, so we can just put the value. Will it be a problem if I do this? No, no problem at all. It's simply waste of resource, because we already have the string type, so we don't have to parse it. If you want to parse it, that's fine, but it's just inefficient. As simple as that. Make sense?
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
Now, with that, we have this checking. Phone number cannot be empty and must be numeric. So if we put a non-number, it will give us an error too. Why for number should be a string instead of numeric? Why for number should be a string instead of number? Anyone?
Because we have 0 in the first
Correct.
number.
Yep, that is absolutely correct. Okay, now if we put this one as a number, this 0 will be removed because 0 in front is not important number. Okay, that's why we need to put it as a string. Now, we can also add exceptions in method. This is what Kenneth mentioned before. What if instead of adding in the class, we add it in the form? Okay. Oh, sorry. This is different than what Kenneth mentioned. This one still in the OFO account class. This one still in the OFO account class. Okay. So before we add the exception within our properties, now in here we add in our top up method. Of course, it will be in a similar fashion, in a similar way. Okay, in here we check if we want to top up, then we need to top up with number. We need to be provided with number bigger than 0. And this is what we have. Okay, and this is what we need to change when we click the button top up to correspond to our new exception. Okay, so let me just do that. OFO accounts. Where's our top up? There we go. If top up value, you forgot. Top up bigger than 0, then we do this. Else, nominal top up should be bigger than 0. Okay, and then we build. We go to here. We do bottom top up. We already checked the format in here, but that custom exception that we have is a general exception. Whoops. So we should have here catching the general exception. Message box dot show ax dot message. Okay, there you go. Done. Page 52. Page 53. We want to also check the buying. Okay, so in the buy, we want, where's my buy? Okay, instead of transaction success and false, transaction failed, we want to raise exception in here. So we convert back, instead of bool in here, we go back to void. Okay, and then if the item price is less than 0, okay, we do a checking in here. If item price is less than 0. There is no buying, there is no item price less than 0, unless the last year oil price in the US, it's negative. So if you buy, you get money. Argument, exception, item price must be greater than 0. Okay. Else, if, oops, sorry. There you go. In here, we don't need to return if it's successful, but if it's not successful, we should throw an error. In here, OFO, cash, and OFO points is not enough. Basically, I think I'm going to copy and paste from here. Okay, because basically we swap our message here. Oops. Okay. Now that we change here, we need to change our coding too. So we need, yes, it's error. I know we no longer have return value. Instead, when we click button buy, we need to catch the possible exception. So basically, put it here. Okay, there's no status. So just try to do this. If there is an exception, oops, catch exception. What should we do? Message box dot show ax dot message. Do you know the difference? Before, we handle the exception in our form. Now, we handle the exception in our class. Meaning, every object of OFO accounts will have the same consistent behavior. Right? That helps, especially if we have many applications using that class. So the current design is better than the previous design. Any questions so far? The behavior will be the same, at least for now, for our case, but it is more consistent because now we put it in our class. So every object, as I mentioned before, of OFO accounts class will have the same consistent behavior whenever or wherever we use it. All right. Any question? Right. Now, what I want you to do today, okay? So what I want you to do today is that you need to do this on your own. Okay? You need to check if user enter too big number for the item price when buying an item. Okay? Check on the internet what is the limit of integer. If it's bigger than that, you should put an error. Okay, catch that. And then next, you need to create a exception for pin value. The pin should be 6 characters and should be numeric. Otherwise, display your own error message. Okay, now you need to check minimum top up and item price when user top up. The minimum value for the top up nominal and the item price is 10,000. Otherwise, there's an error. Okay, I want you to do it before Wednesday and submit on ULS. I will create a ULS and you should submit only the class for your form and your OVO account. So just copy and paste the text in here and your this one. Okay, so just this one so that you don't have any problem. Just submit this, the CS and the forms 1 CS. The content, copy and paste, Control A, copy and paste in your OVO accounts. All right. Any question? Should be easy. Just do it today. Okay. You still have 1 hour. 1 hour, and you should be able to finish it by this 1 hour. Just in case you have any other agenda for today, I allow you to submit it by tomorrow. Will that be enough time? Hello?
Yes, maybe tomorrow, sir.
Tomorrow, midnight, okay?
Okay. Okay, sir.
All right. Any question? Okay. If there's no question, that will be all. See you on Thursday, and I will create the space for you to submit your task for today. It's get it done 1 hour. I'm sure it's more than enough. Let me know if you have any question otherwise. All right, guys.